we're going to be discussing what's called point slope form. Okay, this particular lesson you'll find in your book on page 242. Okay, so point slope form. A couple of things I want you to pay attention to in this particular form is that it's point. So that means we're going to have a coordinate point. Okay, so you're going to need at least 1 point. Okay. And then secondly, of course, you have the slope. So you need your m, or your slope. Okay, so two things that you need for this particular, to write an equation in this form. Two things. Number one is your coordinate point, at least 1 point. You can be given 2, and if you are given 2, then just choose 1, right? Point slope form, so you also need your m or your slope. So that's the second thing that you need. Okay, now this goes along with what we've been discussing in the previous section, y equals mx plus b. Okay, now but for this particular point, or this particular equation, it's written out a little bit different. Okay, so you're going to have your y minus your y1 equals your slope, and then your x minus your x1. Okay, so anytime in an equation when you're given 1 point, one or more point, and a slope, you can use this equation. Okay, now let me discuss a couple of things real quick before we move on. Just some common mistakes that are made, and I will address those. We'll point those out specifically as we go along. But keep in mind how in this equation you have a y1, okay, and an x1. These two, y1 and x1, these two are your specific coordinate points. Okay, so whenever you're given one of these, okay, now if you're given one, then it's easy because all you have to do is put your x over here and your y coordinate on this one. But if you're given at least one and you're given 2 points, then just choose one of those points, and then you can replace the x coordinate and the y coordinate on this point slope equation. Okay, so this is actually what point slope equation looks like right here. Okay, this is the main equation that we're going to be working with in this video, and let's go ahead and look at the book and explore some of the problems that it has. So go ahead in your math book, turn to page 245, and that's where I will begin this video. I will be working out your, I'll start off with working out number 1 and 2, and then after that I'll go ahead and work out all the odds, and then you can work out the evens for extra credit. Okay? Alright, let's go ahead and begin this video. Okay? So I'm looking at number 1 in your book, and it says identify the slope. So I'm looking for the slope, my m, and I'm looking for a given point. Okay, so identify the slope of the line given by the equation, and then identify 1 point. Okay, so let's go ahead and identify the slope first. All right, I'm going to do this one in blue. So my slope I know is my m. So as I look at the equation that's given to me in the text, okay, so here's my y1, and here's my slope, my m. Okay, so my m equals negative 2. Okay, that's my slope right here. Okay, and then it asked me to identify 1 point. Okay, 1 point. So as I look at my 1 point, if you go back to the previous notes, if you go back maybe 10 seconds or so in the video, you'll remember that my y1 and my x1 are actual given specific points in my equation. Okay, so as I look at this equation, okay, I want to, let me change my color here. Okay, so I'm going to have an x and I'm going to have a y coordinate point. Okay, let me go ahead and just identify first my y1. Okay, so my y minus, and then my point will be on this side right here. So that's this one right here. Okay. Notice my equation is y minus y1. And then in the equation that's given to me, it's y minus 5. So that means my y1 equals positive 5. Okay. So my y equals positive 5. And then as I look at my x, okay, notice in my equation it's y minus x1. And then here it's y plus 5. So that must mean that my 5 must have been a negative 5, because a negative 5 would make this a positive. So that must mean my x1 is a negative 5. So here is my slope. Here's the first part of my equation, or first part of the problem that I answered. And then here is 1 point. Okay, this being my x1, and then my 5 being my y1. Okay, that's number 1. Now let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, describe the steps that you would take to write an equation in point slope. Okay, so just for my own clarification, what is point slope again? Okay, this is point slope form. Okay, go ahead in your mind. What is it? Before I write it down. Okay, so hopefully you're thinking y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remembering that my y1 and my x1 are specific points. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Describe the steps you would take to write an equation in point slope form of a line that passes through the points positive 3, negative 2, and then my other point is 4 and 5. Okay, so I want to use these 2 points to write my new equation. And remember, what are the 2 things that I need to write in point slope form? Do you remember those? Okay, I'm pausing a little bit so you can kind of think those in your head. What are the 2 main things? Number 1, I need a slope, and then number 2, I need at least 1 coordinate point. Well, I can see here that I have 2. So later on, I already have this covered. I already have that. I can pick either one of these 2 and plug it into this equation and make it work. But there's one thing that I'm missing right now, and that's my slope. Well, you already know that to find the slope, I just need 2 points. Okay? So because we've worked out finding slope for quite a while, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video at this point, and the next screen you'll see is me having worked out finding my slope using these 2 points. Okay, so here's my work that I did to find my slope. Okay, this should all look familiar to you. Okay, and then my final answer in finding my slope was 7. So if you don't remember this, just pause the video at this point and then look at the work that I did. Okay, so you can kind of refresh your memory. So now I have my slope, which is 7, and then I have 1 point, which is either one of these here that I can pick. I can pick either one. Okay, so now let me write out my equation. Okay, y equals, okay, let's say I'm going to pick the top one. Okay, this is the point I'm going to pick. I can pick the bottom one too if I wish. So, oops. Okay, so y minus, and then so my y1 would be negative 2. So since it's y minus, it'll be y minus a negative 2. Notice how I'm putting my negative 2 in parentheses, okay? Okay, equals m, and my slope is 7, times x minus, so what would be my x1? That would be my 3, okay? Minus 3. Now just to simplify this, to make this more clear, I would have y, and then of course plus, minus a negative would be plus 2 equals 7 times, and then x minus 3 just stays the same. And this would be my equation in point slope form, okay, for number 2. So again, it says describe my steps. So step number 1 would be to, okay, I would find my slope. I would find my slope, okay, using my 2 given points, okay, which is what I did right over here, right? All this work right here. And then my second step would be to pick a point, okay, pick a point, and then substitute my coordinates for x1 and my y1 in my equation, which is this, my y1 and my x1 right here. Okay, so that would be the way that I would describe what I did, and that would cover the entire thing for problem number 2 on page 245. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to other problems. So I'm going to now start working all the odds, starting with number 3. So keep in mind that you're working out the evens. I'm working out the odds. So 3 through 11, I'm only going to work out 2 of them because I feel like they're pretty self-explanatory or intuitive. So let's look at number 3. You're given a point, 2 and 1, and a slope of 2. Remember, you need 2 things for point-slope form. You need the slope and you need a point, and it's exactly what's given to you. Okay, so here I'm going to write out my equation. Okay, y. Well, see here, let me identify these. So, okay, my m, I already know that. Now let me identify my x and my y. Okay, so this one right here is my x1, and then this one here is my y1. Now I can work out my equation. Okay, so y minus my y1 is 1 equals, my slope is 2 times x minus x1, which is 2. Okay? Now, something to keep in mind. One of the common mistakes that is made in working these problems out is that sometimes students will replace your x and your y, okay, instead of replacing, here, they'll replace your y and x instead of replacing your x1 and y1. Okay, the final product for your equation should always have the variable without the subtext. The ones that you're going to be replacing are the ones that have the subtext 1 underneath them. So that would be your y1 and x1. Okay, so let me work out number 3 again, but I'm going to work it out the wrong way. I'm going to work it out the way that where the mistake is commonly made. Okay, so you'll have a student who will look at this and they'll say, okay, so I'm going to replace my so here's my equation. I'm going to replace my y with 1 minus y1 equals 2 times 2 minus x1. Okay, so this isn't correct. Okay, because if this is my final equation, I have 2 things that are wrong. Number 1, I still have my y sub 1 and I still have my x sub 1, and you don't want that. Okay, these are the variables that you're supposed to replace. My final product should always have my variable y, okay, and then this one right here is replaced, and I'll have some slope, right, times my x minus, and then this x right here, let me change the color real quick. This x1 and this y1 are the ones that get replaced, not these right here. Okay, so that's a common mistake. Watch out for that. All right, let's work out number 5. Okay, let's work out number 5. So number 5, you're given 7, and then for your y, a minus 1. That's your point, and then you're given a slope of -6. Okay, so y, and what's my y1? My y1 is -1, so that's y minus, okay, a -1 equals, my slope is -6 times x minus, and what's my x1? My x1 is 7. Okay, so here's my x, and here's my x1 and y1. Remember, x sub 1 and y sub 1 these are very specific points that's being given to you, okay? Those are specific points. So just to kind of clean this up a little bit more, okay, here I have a y minus a negative, so I can just say y plus 1 equals negative 6, and there's not much to do here. It's already pretty clean, and I can leave it just like that. Okay, so that's 3 and 5. And I think working out these two problems should help you in working out 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, so now we're looking at number 13 still on page 245. So describe and correct, okay, correct the error in writing an equation of the line that passes through, so this is my point, okay, that's the first thing I need, and has a slope of negative 2. Okay, so this equation that we see here right now, okay, this equation right here is incorrect. Something happened here that was wrong. So let's take a look at that. All right, so we're going to take a really close look, and I'm going to look first at my point. Okay, so 1, negative 5. So that means my x1 should equal 1, and my y1 should equal negative 5, right? And my equation, my general equation looks like, okay, y minus y1 equals m x minus x sub 1. Okay, so that's my general equation. So let's see if this matches exactly. Okay, so it looks like I'm okay right there, my y. And then my 5 minus y. So for here, it would be y minus, and then my y1 is minus 5. Okay, well, if I look at the left side of my equation, I think I can already spot my first problem. Y minus 5 would indicate that y1 was a positive 5. But in fact, I can see here that my y1 was actually a negative 5, so it should be y minus a minus 5, which would make it y plus 5. Okay? All right, so here I spotted my first error right there, and it's right here. Okay? This should not be y minus 5. This should be y plus 5. Okay, let's continue and see if we can find any more errors. Okay, my slope is negative 2. Let me go back and check. Yep, my slope is in fact negative 2. So minus 2, x, okay, minus, and then what's my x1? x1 is 1, so x minus 1. And that's exactly what I have up here. So the left side of the equation, is good. The error was on, I'm sorry, the right side of the equation was good, and the left side of my equation is where I found my mistake, because this is not y minus 5, it should be y plus 5, because my y1 is negative 5, so that would make it y minus a minus 5, which would change it to y plus 5. Okay, so that's where the mistake was. Now, how would I put this in writing? Okay, so the left side. Okay, now you can put it in your own words, of course. So the left side of equation is y minus y1, okay? But which would be y minus a negative 5, okay? But the student had y minus 5, which would indicate that it was actually a positive 5, but in fact it's a negative 5. Okay, so this is just one way that you could write it. So the left side was y minus y1, which would make it y minus a minus 5, but the student had y minus 5. So the y1 is a negative number, and the student had a positive number. Okay, so that's number 13.